The unassuming little groveler that did a gun's job. Sounds like a children's story, but it's actually a grown-up man's story. And the story is, it was hurricane season in Florida, and my buddy, my team rider, Peter Mendia, there was no hurricanes, but it was hurricane season, and it had been flat all summer. This particular summer, it was pumping all summer in California. So he kept calling me going, oh my gosh, it looks so good out there. Should I just come out? And I was like, yeah, come out. But then he's like, well, either way, I need a groveler for really small East Coast, but I don't want a full-on groveler. I want this, greased pig. And the greased pig is for tiny waves, but it's not like a full-on groveler where it will only work in horrible waves. It's a real versatile groveler. So, and in Florida where Pete lives, they get this short period wind swell, like wind chop peaks that come in, waves like real close together, and so it'll be small, but it can be hollow in good shape and peaks. So you want something that's going to fit in the pocket, not necessarily a groveler that's just a pudgy roundo that's just for like small point breaks. So this is more of a beach breaky groveler, and it's the greased pig. So we made this, sent it out there, and he wrote it maybe 3 or 4 days, and some small stuff, was all psyched, sent some footage back over and was like, hey, this thing goes insane, I'm so stoked. But we're getting a huge swell finally. Hurricanes coming up the coast. It looks like it's going to park right near us and could keep conditions clean and be all time. So I'll let you know. But it's my wife's birthday, so I'm throwing a big bash for her, and then I'm going to do all the cleanup and all that, so I'm probably gonna miss the first few days. And so then they have this big birthday bash at the Mendias for Ali Mendia, and big success, everybody has fun, and just like the Mendias, they're always getting the community and the friends together, and people just having a good time, good clean fun. And so flash forward to the next morning, and Pete's phone is ringing going, hey, Pete, it's going off, you gotta come surf. And he's like, no, I'm gonna do cleanup, it's all good, have fun. And they're like, no, it's really good, you gotta see this. And Ali overhears and says, hey, you know, just go surf, it's all good. And so he got the blessing from the wife. His heart was in the right place to, you know, bless his woman, have the party, even do cleanup, and that's cool stuff. And somehow I've found when you do cool stuff to bless people, especially your family, especially your wife, usually cool stuff happens back at you. I think it's just one of those laws of nature. So anyways, that law of nature happened to Pete because he got the blessing, he went, and probably the best barrels ever to hit the East Coast. And he rushed out the door, went to meet his buddy, and this board was at his house because it was still the freshie, his new baby, and so this thing he just grabbed, it was there, and he had a step up, a 6.6, went, snapped the 6.6 after 3 waves or something like that, and was in a boat to even get to this spot. There was telephone poles in the water. It was a full-on hurricane swell, and so he wasn't able to get back to land to get another board. This was the only other board left in the boat. And even though it was a groveler, he's like, well, what am I going to do? I'll charge it on the groveler. And so what shouldn't have worked actually ended up working better than the step up. And here's why. Because this is an epoxy. Epoxies are great, in my opinion, for small little stuff, clean, glassy, small, grovelly, fun stuff. They're real kinetic, real lively, real whippy, but not so much for big square barrels or, you know, ribs in the face or navigating through lumps and bumps or just heavy situations, because they can tend to ping pong around and bounce around, and you know, you lose your footing because the rail will disengage. But what was really cool is this is a stringerless epoxy, and it's a different core than most epoxies. So this core is actually engineered specific EPS bead that's engineered here in Ventura, made here in Ventura specifically for surfboards, and it has a higher compression strength. It's fused under higher pressure, so the beads are joined together tighter, so you don't get you don't get water like getting sucked into the whole blank when you get a ding. And it also doesn't float as high and kind of corky on the water. So it's a little, displaces a little more in the water, kind of like an ultralight poly does. Yet it's lighter than a poly board and a lot springier, but it still has that dampening characteristic like a poly board has. So that's part of it. The other part why I think this board works so good, even though it was in a situation that really wasn't meant for a groveler, is that it's a stringerless epoxy and you get a lot more flex in a stringerless board. So what Pete and I realized, like afterwards, I was like, whoa, you rode the groveler? He's like, yeah, that's all I had in the boat. The other one snapped, hopped out there, but it actually worked really good. It totally handled. And he said, you know, I could feel it flexing inside the barrel. And since it wasn't real long, I could get it further back in the barrel. And that was really cool to us, because this was at a time when guys weren't riding shorter, stubbier, like slab specific shortboards, like kind of what is the standard now for Skeleton Bay and different slabs. Is this shorter, stubbier, you know, more pulled in boards rather than extra length like you'd ride in Hawaii or something to cover a lot of territory. But to get up and under the hook, riding a shorter, not as much rail line, not as much out here, so that the lip doesn't clip it, so you can get high and tight and deeper and back on the foam ball further. And so this was kind of before that trend had happened, and we accidentally kind of stumbled on to that type of a hydrodynamic concept with a shorter board, a flatter board, and something that's also has a flex characteristic in it where it's actually warping to the wave face. So as the wave is compressing, it's actually compressing more curve into the rocker in the steeper spots. And so having the natural flatter rocker of a groveler, it was able to squeeze into the board more rocker, like a more rockery board, and adjust it all the while inside the barrel. And so that's a pretty rad concept, a self-adjusting rocker, making a board way more versatile. So it takes the design elements of just the board itself, complements it with the materials and the construction of how the board is made, and allows the board to actually become like a different board all in one. So you have like 3, 4, 5 different rail line rockers in the board, because a lot of people think of rockers, specific rockers for specific waves, as you have one set rocker that only works for that particular style of wave. And so this takes it out of that paradigm, and actually the board is moving while it's moving through and along on the face of the wave. So that was an amazing thing that we discovered for a groveler, to be able to handle huge bowly barrels and be epoxy and navigate that stuff and feel better than the step up felt. So it was a pleasant surprise for me and for Pete. And surprises are fun things when they happen, when you don't really plan for something and then you learn something new out of left field that you never expected. Is a really cool part of the journey. And so we both dug that, because sometimes the funnest part of the journey is, or most times the funnest part of the journey is getting surprised. You know, not, okay, this is how I'm gonna work out like every little detail and micromanage and make sure that everything, you know, life gets boring like that. But when you let it flow and let it happen, this is one of those stories. And so I love this little board. And Pete actually wanted it back after he got the cover. He got the cover of Surfer, and I was like, Sorry, bro. We got to put it up on the wall in the showroom, and but who knows? Maybe I'll let him have it back one of these days, and he can ride it some more. But it rests on the wall in our showroom right now, and is a special board. And that was a special day that Pete and his skill took this thing to the best barrel probably ever ridden on the East Coast.